When the Facebook story broke yesterday, we were on air, when they first announced they were going to dilly-dally with the algorithms and get rid of the kind of fact-checker. Now, journalistically, when you first hear somebody say we're going to get rid of the fact-checker, you sort of, your ears prick up and go, well, that sounds a bit weird on the face of it. But, of course, Facebook's fact-checker worked very different to other fact-checkers, or maybe the one at the BBC, but you take the point. And it's thrown in to the spotlight the question, and obviously doing this for a living, I've got skin in the game, but I genuinely think this should be of interest to all of us as to where we're going to be getting our news and our information. Because at the moment, and it's not new entirely, but there's a new kind of credibility being added to the digital world, to social media, that was never really there before. It's a cacophony of information that flows out at 1,000 billion messages and items a second. And this is our go-to news outlet. Meta is getting rid of the independent fact-checkers, replacing them with the sort of X-style, X as in Twitter-style, community notes, which is where individuals can correct somebody's post. That in itself then creates another set of debates, usually, if you've ever followed that on Twitter, where someone's gone, no, that's absolutely not true. I think you'll find it was 1976 we had the hot summer. And then someone's then chips in, no, you say that, but it started in 75, and on it goes. Mark Zuckerberg said third-party moderators were too politically biased and it was time to get back to our roots of free expression. Let's have a little listen to what Mr. Zuckerberg said yesterday.
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact-checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
So there it is, all fine and dandy, but where is the line between fact-checking and fact-blocking? Where is the line between opinion and facts? And that's where the whole waters have got muddied. The move comes as Zuckerberg and other tech execs seek to improve relations with the US president to come, Donald Trump. He takes office, of course, in January. Trump and the Republican allies have criticised Meta for its fact-checking policy, calling it censorship of right-wing voices. Well, I think you have to be honest about this and say, yes, there clearly were some censorship of right-wing voices. Trump, and this is interesting, Trump is almost the instigator about fake news, his comments about fake news media, crooked organisations. The hashtag scum media became a thing. You may remember people now use the term, curious term, legacy media, which is used to sort of describe the mainstream, a pejorative, I think, which suggests that the mainstream is dead and the real news exists elsewhere. Platforms like Twitter. Zuckerberg has sensed the mood and jumped into bed, really, metaphorically, with Musk on this one. And one assumes this is to try and ring-fence himself from the iron fist of the next president. The fact that some of the greatest whoppers we've ever read have come from Trump itself, and even Musk, seems to elude people. Many see Musk and X as the person who gave them their voices back, people who claimed they were censored. Now, I get it, by the way, because it is frustrating. When the old Twitter banned President Trump, it was the most bonkers and dangerous thing I think I'd ever seen. Look, whoever's holding the keys to Twitter made a largely political decision. I know Trump wasn't covering himself in glory. Here you had a democratically elected president literally claiming industrial-scale corruption and a rigged election. I mean, that's pretty bad stuff. That in itself would normally preclude someone from office ever again. But it's Trump we're talking about here. So I agree that getting rid of people just because you don't like the cut of their jib is not necessarily the best way forward. But I think we can settle on one thing, that Twitter and other media organisations are indeed a dark den of iniquity, a playground of hyperbole at best, and an utter sewer of lies, invention and conspiracy at worst. But Musk claims this is now the place where people get their news. Now, he would say that, wouldn't he? He owns the thing. Have you seen, let's take the obvious, grooming gangs, something that has been in the news 24/7 for the last week or so. Just have a look at the information, misinformation, differing figures and stats, people who are accused. I mean, it is just, unless you're the only time you will really get truth on Twitter is when you click on one of the links from the mainstream media. That's usually what happens. Now, I get it, once in a while, there'll be other journalists that might chip in. But most of the time, it's just not. I don't know who sees that place as a go-to for their news. But all I do know is that every day somebody says, why are you not talking about this, Collins? The number of victims in the grooming gang scandal is about half. I keep seeing this figure of 500,000, 750,000, over 1 million, somebody claimed the other day. Now, nobody's going to underplay the severity of what happened with grooming gangs and the various towns and cities in our country where these horrendous crimes of rape, torture and brutality took place. Nobody's going to underplay that. But simultaneously, I also don't want to invent things about that story. But you go to Twitter and that's where you'll find it. I literally got that tweet yesterday. Why are you not mentioning this figure? 750,000 victims. You're not talking about it. And their evidence for this was to simply repost somebody else who'd said it. And that was it. Is that the go-to place for news? So I'm bound to ask, in the wake of all of this, and this is the game changer, because Musk being involved isn't just he's hardly a silent partner. It doesn't sit in the background. Zuckerberg was, I wouldn't say anonymous, but he wasn't really involved editorially or front-facing in the way that Elon Musk is. And that's great. It's his thing. He can do what he wants with it. But it does change the terms of engagement with the platform somewhat, particularly when the bloke that owns it is proclaiming that he is the man who holds the key to the truth when it comes to news. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. 0344 499 1000. Let me ask, who do you trust with your news? Who do you trust when it comes to news? I think the short answer is multiple areas is a good thing. If you're going to use Twitter as your default news place, then you've got to spend, a good hour on there just to dissect the truth of one story. Because you'll see a million version of events, and then, of course, you find the one that chimes with your existing opinion, and you run with that, and then you realise, oh, look, 110,000 people also agree with me because they've all liked the post. And you end up in this crazy place, it's beyond an echo chamber, really. It's essentially a parlour of insanity, and certainly isn't reflecting the truth. 0344 499 1000. So when it comes to news, who do you trust with news? I don't think it's going to be Facebook because they haven't covered themselves in glory.